our dear third-time camper, David Hassoun, and, well, let's do the new version of it, which is the shortest distance to successful streaming. Ads is not a linear line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. David Hassoun. I think I've met most of you. If you don't know me, I'm a streaming media consultant. I used to be at Dolby, and before that, I had my own company called Realize for about 18 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about the world of nonlinear ads and what that means. It's a term that gets thrown around a little bit now. It's kind of cool. It's kind of new, but not too new. Some people are actually doing it. It also can be called concurrent ads. As in many things in our industry, nobody can actually align on what terminology to use, because I was talking with Stefan. He's like, so you're doing linear broadcasting with ads? No. So we'll talk a little bit about what it is, why it's cool, what it's useful for, that type of stuff. And it all kind of starts with this wonderful lie that we've been told for years that, hey, in the new streaming world, now that we're getting out of broadcast, ads will be better, right? We're gonna have a better experience, right? Many years on now, no, it's not. It's horrible. It's still the same thing. And ultimately, you know, the idea that the bathroom break during ads isn't a feature, it's a bug, right? Nowadays, it's the idea that people will get these ads and they're just going to ignore them because they're not the greatest experience. They oftentimes don't relate to what you want to watch. And you can just get swamped with the same ad over and over and over again. So ultimately, viewer frustration's at this all-time high. Ad avoidance behaviors are really now taking more prominence. And CPMs are under pressure, so essentially how much you make for all these ads that you show with people. So cool, I have to spam you even more ads just to make the same amount of money I made before. And ultimately, the user experience is the one that's sacrificing. And we hope that people don't run away, or they get so tired of it, they'll pay the extra money for the subscription, which is a strategy that some organizations take, right? So what does it mean when we say nonlinear ads? I have no idea if this is going to work, because we're just like, hey, I can click on these things. I can't click here. Let's see if these... No! Okay, pretend these are cool videos that are showing you an example of nonlinear ads, right? Use your imagination. So we can have things like overlay ads. We can have a pullback ad where you start changing the content and bring that back. You can have an L banner ad. You can have a pause ad. Okay, great. Well, they weren't doing anything anyway. They're going to avoid the ad. Why not throw another one in there? Right? These are different ways that we can work with streaming ads in a non-linear fashion. When we say non-linear, it means that it's not just you have to watch the content, then you have to solely watch the ad, and then you go back to your content. Right? Here now it's ideas like, well, sneak in a little bit of ad while you're watching your content. And for those of you guys who like football out here, you know, there's not a lot of times they drop ads because the game doesn't stop, which is a beautiful thing. But it's hard to monetize those events as well. And if you can add sponsorships and so forth that show up while you're doing it after a goal, hey, yay, look, more Pepsi, yay. That is maybe less of an intrusive. It doesn't stop you from what you're watching and what you care about, but also still provides a good opportunity for the advertisers to make money, and therefore these platforms to still be able to be around and continue to deliver these wonderful bits of content. So what we're going to kind of cover is a little bit about what it takes, and your choices that kind of go with that, the standards around this stuff that's really being involved right now, and then, you know, but why, as my favorite person usually says. So, oh, my fonts are all messed up too. This is fun. This is a good thing about trial runs. You get to see how it goes. You know, so what does it take? Decision in tech. So the idea here is you kind of pick which route you want to go for your technology. There's something newer called server-guided ad insertion, and then there's server-side ad insertion. Maybe not the 10-year-old version, which is really cool and fairly complex, but it's been kind of evolved and so forth, and is now more of that kind of manifest manipulation and gives you that single stream and so forth. You can do nonlinear in either approach, but there's going to be different challenges, and let's take a look at that. So let's say we pick the red boxer, and we want to go with server-guided ad insertion. You know, ultimately here, you can do your signaling as you kind of normally do. It's going to be showing into the end, and your manifest can be picked up there, and it's going to be a client-side experience, right? It's going to be generally will resolve your ads using a server-based solution, so you get a little bit of that server-guided element of server-guided ad insertion, and then the actual rendering, the experience that the user sees, all done at the client. Right? So whereas server-side ad insertion, it gives you this one stream usually, and you just kind of get this cool experience. With the server-guided, you're now onto the client, but you have with that more capability and more headache to actually do something well with it. The beaconing will be client-driven. That also is generally really taken well. So the idea is that you're telling the client when the client will tell the ad servers when it's actually viewed the ad and so forth, and is more trusted than having the server do it, man in the middle. Benefits, you have a distributed system. It can scale really well, right? The number of users doesn't necessarily impact the scale of this type of solution, other than just your normal ad type of loads, which are also manageable in different ways and good routes to help distribute that as well. And full control for dynamic layouts. You can do anything you want, right? But the thing is, you're doing it on the client. If you want to have 2 videos, you have to render those 2 videos. And the downside is a lot of devices might not support that. Right? Even more modern devices. A problem in our industry we always kind of run into is like, oh, cool, there's this really cool new technology. I want to use it. Cool, but it only works on this latest version or latest operating system or latest device. With server-guided ad insertion, that is not all true. It can work on a broad spectrum of devices, but there's still a number of ones that don't support that due to decisions made many years ago. Roku only supports 1 video renderer, so we get a lot of that in the US, right? Older smart TVs, not the new ones we actually can, only have 1 video renderer and decoder. Apple TV, that's a really good device, other than the remote's a pain in the butt. That one also can be limited and is most limited to 1 video decoder as well. So creating these experiences there start to create an inherent challenge. Now, it doesn't mean we might not be able to do both, but if we're trying to keep that focus on server-guided ad insertion, that is a problem that we have to deal with and understand and determine how we're going to handle that right out of the gate. Now, if we go with the other route, which is the most common today, which is most prevalent, is server-side ad insertion. We want to look at nonlinear. Once again, we kind of have the same basis. We're doing more now stuff on the server. It's kind of all being taken care of there. But wait a minute, if it's all kind of being streamed out from the server, how am I going to put 2 videos potentially together, or I want to do a background and so forth? That gets more complicated. What you can do is more hybrid solutions with this SSAI solution. You can have your normal ads if you want them to continue to go with the server mixing of those. But when you actually have an interactive element, you can render that on the client or an overlay or so forth, especially when it's non-video. So you can utilize both as necessary. You can still do all your resolving and all your signaling that is managed by your server, and then at the client, you can pass that forward. One of the things that I'll touch on a little bit later as well is on both these sides, you see something called SIMID, S-I-M-I-D. That's for interactive ads at the client, and that has also been updated to be able to support nonlinear ads as well. And those can work through and flow directly with server-side ad insertion. And it allows you to pretty much have like an iframe that's rendered at the client, and you can have interactive stuff in there and layer that with your video, or have videos even within that as well. So you can trigger that from SSAI, but it gets complicated. The other option with SSAI, and there are pretty powerful solutions out there around this, but can be very complex, take a lot of infrastructure or a lot of cost and potential risk, is actually compositing this type of stuff in one way or another. So the idea there is at the server, or better yet at the edge, you could actually combine both your advertising content and your primary content together to create a new unique video for that user or segment of users who would receive this new, better experience. But when you talk about re-encoding content, that's very challenging, very expensive. There's really cool stuff the Montevideo Tech Ventures is looking into on how we can use new codecs and so forth to maybe improve and come up with innovative ways to solve this type of problem. But there's still inherent challenges with there, right? There are potential new things with new codecs you do to avoid having to re-encode and still be able to integrate that type of stuff. But now, once again, we run into that challenge of like, oh, I want to do the coolest thing, and it's not supported everywhere yet. And that's always a big challenge, right? How do we lead forward, but not leave everyone behind at the same time? So what makes this stuff actually doable? Oftentimes this comes down to standards, right? Groups and individuals that are doing this stuff now, figuring it out, kind of dealing with the bleeding on the edge portion, so that they can give you Band-Aids to do that better down the road. So what's happening in this kind of standard element, right? Well, we have ad markers are generally being worked on through SCTE. SCTE is doing new stuff as well. to address what's happening with nonlinear. I've been working with them and coordinating with them on how we can also inject data to handle how you can do layout information and so forth within the nonlinear side, within your SCTE data. So you can pass that along right from there down to, hey, I want to do this type of placement. I want a overlay video in the top right corner. Go forward with and figure it out from there. That's pretty much the idea of SCTE. There's like, hey, now's the time. Here's an ad. Here's a little bit of information. Make it work, right? Then we have play with the signaling. You get that signal, and you need to take that further, right? Okay, great. I want to actually express this, whether it be in a HLS date range tag, and I'm going to decorate that further and indicate what type of technology I'm going to do to allow the player to render this within server-guided ad insertion, or also then what the server-side ad insertion is going to pull off from that tag to make those ad calls. Ultimately, this is what's going to drive to, hey, I've taken what you have from SCTE, there's additional information that I need from the actual video player or otherwise, or the user, and I'm going to allow you to get all that information together to then actually deliver out an ad. Then you would come over to your ad serving. This would be something, once again, also managed by IIB, would be VAST, for instance, is the most common. So, hey, I want to get an ad break here. It's going to be non-linear. Make this really sexy, right? And it's going to give you back this wonderful XML that is not sexy. It has all sorts of fun, convoluted goodies in there, but it has enough information for you to start acting upon it and therefore render it back into the player. And we're also working at the SVTA to take that same signaling spec to also help you on how you can render this out, make that standard, make that work across different platforms, so forth. By the way, I'm the co-chair of the SVTA Advertising Work Group. Hello! One of the things I'm working on is actually trying to get all three of these wonderful groups to talk together, because oftentimes in specifications, that doesn't happen. I'm not succeeding completely, but that doesn't mean I won't try. So going a little bit more as far as SCTE, there's kind of three main areas that we often see in the streaming side. SCTE 35 is the core signaling standard. That's the most common one that ends up kind of reflecting into ad markers that you can then do something about. Comes in the stream, get distracted, put it in the manifest. It was a headache 10 years ago. It's a mild headache now, but everyone's used to the headache now, so it's just, you can do it. SCTE 224 is the event scheduling interface, the SNI. Provides the out-of-bound mechanism for scheduling and managing content replacements. And then SCTE 214 is constraints and extensions. And this is really meant to help assist in the transition between broadcast, cable infrastructure, unicast. But ultimately, like what I really see and what we're working the most on is either adjustments with SCTE 35 and SCTE 224. I've been working with Alex Gelati, who's been helping deal with the SCTE side and trying to make sure we keep things at least close. From the SVTA, we already have version 2 of a signaling specification, the ad creative signaling doc. Zach Cava has been the main leader on that. We are working on version 3 right now. We have that draft, pretty good start. We have to add some goodies for Dash and so forth in there, but have a whole new kind of cool advanced layout management system that can go with this. And how that can then relate into HLS, and started talking a little bit with Apple and so forth as well to hopefully get their input. And what that looks like here is I put together a reference cool application that allows you to go test out this idea of this new layout system, what it would look like, how it would work. You can specify your ad type. You can adjust your primary content. If you're doing an ad type element, you can add an overlay, for instance. You can specify where you want it to be anchored. So this would be top left, how much padding on your vertical and horizontal, and some of the other elements. And what it does is it generates out your HLS asset list, utilizing the new specification for how you can do this, and actually shows you what the rendering would be like. And it all updates real time. You can try different layouts, try your vertical, try your horizontal, all that type of stuff. And you can see the goal that we're doing this is to bring this out to the community. Like, okay, this is what the spec says. Instead of just like, cool, I read 80 pages of a spec. Yeah, that sounds fine. Why not? Something that you can actually go and look at and see what it would look like and render as, and give you the confines around that. And then these are tools that I really want to work towards bringing into the CML, right? So the common media library that all these different players can use, that if they want to use this type of rendering, that they already have all this. And now you have a tool for testing it, a tool for previewing it, and then you can inject it. If anyone wants to see this, hit me up. I need to get it posted somewhere, but it's actually working and does a pretty good job. So last but not least is IAB. IAB has been a big focus on creating these ad standards. They work largely with the ad kind of providers, sellers, and that side of the business a lot. They have a couple key specs that apply to nonlinear. There's been this new initiative called the Ad Format Hero Initiative. That's where they define these kind of key new formats that they want to work with within the nonlinear space. And it's pause ad, menu ad, squeeze back, overlay, in-scene ads, and screensaver ads. I am ignoring in-scene ads and screensaver ads because they just don't apply to me, and menu ads, and yay. What I've been really focused on trying to align a bit with them on is what actually happens within a video player and the stream. And an example, like the in-scene ads is actually talking about like doing product replacements. So, or like, hey, there's a car driving by and there's billboards. Well, cool, we can put on different banners on the billboards directly because I know Womi likes motorcycles. I don't actually know if he likes motorcycles, but that's the idea with that. And they have started working on all the standards around that, which will then flow into VAS. So now they've kind of defined the initial portion. They're into the VAS side, which is actually like, great, what data are we going to send now to say that we want this to be an overlay ad and how it's going to be default positioned or otherwise. So working through all that and aligning that with our spec so that our defaults line up with their spec as well is the first thing that I am able to actually do. And then I mentioned Simid as well, which provides this kind of cool secure model for interactive media within the ad space. And there you can see you have like a media player, you have your ad media, and then you can have an iframe on top of that as well with whatever content within there is the concept, and everything within the iframe stays sandboxed to keep the security model well and avoid ads doing something nasty to your application. But why is a question that we always need to ask ourselves. Sarge is the man for asking but why all the time. Worked with him many years, and that was awesome on how many projects he saved from going off the rails because he would be the one that stopped everyone and said, yeah, but why are we doing that, right? Oh, okay, well, we've got to come with a good answer before we can proceed. So let's start with where we are. Exiting the experimental phase is where we're kind of at. We are seeing large organizations actually implementing and doing this, right? Google, Netflix, Amazon, Disney, they are moving forward with nonlinear ads because they are truly effective. But it is a big challenge, and there's different approaches being taken across the board. One of the reasons why we want to try to move forward with standards as well to help and to align as best we can. Easy wins are things like pause ads. Like, cool, well, let's just add an ad when you pause the content because it's dead space and it's an easy way to monetize in some regard. That's straightforward and doesn't require as much of the complication sometimes as other things. But there's still the barriers around not only the standards, but the ad style and formatting. Like this has to go into the upstream as well. You can just say, hey, I'm going to render this as a nonlinear, but oftentimes it needs to be sold as that. The ad creative needs to be prepared around that, especially if you're doing things like L banners and so forth. So that's something that the inventory needs to line up, which is a continuous problem oftentimes, that the inventory doesn't always match what we want to be able to actually produce. And then the technology investment to actually make that happen. Like this type of stuff, it takes more work, either at the server and what has to take place there in part, no matter what, or especially at the client and so forth. There is a payback, right? And it's proven by this wonderful chart that AI generated for me that has to be true, right? It even says industry sentiment analysis from 2024. But the reality is, no, there has been a lot of industry studies and reports showing the value of this. And it really comes down to better engagement, less likely to actually skip, and less likely to forget about brand and improving brand recognition, and that overall perceived value. That gives it a more premium feel, of course. Build versus buy, that's always a challenge, and what pieces you actually need to build. You know, the providers are also offering this. The biggest challenge, though, is what's happening in the client and what you're doing there. If you're doing a client-side solution, it depends. Is the player you're working with, if you're using a commercial player, support this already? A lot of them are starting to, and you can see what's going on within that. And if not, it is work to build it out there. It's not the end of the world type of work, but I've never met a decent-sized video platform team that had a bunch of extra resources and capacity to just add some cool new features that they've been wanting to do. Ultimately, you know, I think that looking at hybrid approaches is really the right way to go. What you can build versus what you want to buy, and what pieces and parts you can kind of combine for that. but that's always a kind of more complicated, deeper kind of discussion. And why we're doing this, what we have actually seen is there can be up to a 3x engagement lift, 40% lower skip rates, and a 2x brand recall. And those are actually real stats that we've been able to pull from industry sources and so forth. So it is worth the work, but it is going to be some work. I think the challenges are really around what you can do from a server-based perspective and the compositing elements there, and where you can get away with not doing that or not supporting that for those platforms that can't for now and having a lesser experience. You could still do things even on those plans of a single video decode, doing things like L-band or pullback. So think about you have your video kind of scales back. I had that really cool video. You would have made sense when I just said L-band. You'd be like, oh, I know what it is. I saw it. But think about your video kind of scales back a little bit, and now you have a vertical and a horizontal branding area, right? It's great for highlighting action and other stuff as well, and can also be a good monetary source. Those you can do even on a single video decode platform. So you're not limited just to say you can't do anything on there. And that's something I think we're already seeing a large growth in and success with. Thank you.